Can you imagine the moment when you open your banking app and look at your balance, and instead of panicking and closing the screen, a genuine smile appears on your face? The time when you no longer have to calculate whether you can afford even a small coffee, or the days when after grocery shopping you don't have to wonder whether you'll be forced to survive the rest of the week on cheap meals. In reality, there is a certain threshold where people begin to feel financially more comfortable. And the interesting part is that it is not the number most people think of. Many financial experts will tell you that you need $1 million to truly feel rich, while others claim that a six-figure income is the number that changes everything. But there is a truth that most people overlook. The threshold that fundamentally changes your relationship with money might be much lower than you think. And once you reach that point, the financial dynamics in your life slowly begin to evolve in a different direction. That threshold is around $20,000. I'm Olivia, and for a long time I have been trying not only to understand how to earn money, but also how money actually works, how people think about money, and why some individuals seem to grow their wealth almost naturally. At the same time, I also study why some people remain stuck in the same financial cycle for years. If you want to understand the real mechanics behind building wealth and you want to act consciously instead of waiting for everything to magically fix itself one day, then you're in the right place. But first, let me ask you a question. When you think about building wealth, what kind of picture forms in your mind? Maybe you imagine a trust fund kid who was born rich and has never experienced financial stress. Or perhaps you picture someone who works with discipline for years and slowly saves money over time. In reality, however, the process of building wealth does not work as simply as most people think. Our financial lives are actually shaped by certain thresholds. You can think of them as invisible barriers, and when you cross one of these boundaries, the rules of the game begin to change. Around $20,000 is one of the first major turning points between people who live paycheck to paycheck and those who truly begin building wealth. And the interesting part is that most people are not even aware that such a threshold exists. To visualize this more clearly, imagine pushing a heavy rock up a hill. The hardest part is the beginning. At first, there is almost no progress. You get tired, and sometimes you even question whether it's possible at all. But once you gain enough momentum, everything changes. The rock begins to move faster, and when it finally reaches the top of the hill, it almost rolls down the other side by itself. In the financial world, the $20,000 level is very similar. Before reaching this point, saving money often feels like a constant uphill battle. But once you pass this threshold, the system slowly begins to work in your favor. However, the most interesting part is not just the mathematics. The issue is not only that you have more money or that your investments generate higher returns. The real transformation happens in your mind. When you don't have enough money, your brain operates in what psychologists call survival mode. Most of your financial decisions pass through the filter of fear and scarcity. You accept the first job offer that appears because you feel like you have no other choice. You stay in environments you don't like because leaving seems risky. You say yes to things you don't want to do because you need the money. This is not just about taking responsibility. When your brain is in survival mode, it struggles to think about growth, opportunity, or long-term planning. It's like trying to plan a vacation while your house is on fire. Your mind constantly focuses on short-term problems, but when you reach savings of around $20,000, an interesting shift occurs. Suddenly, a mental space opens up, and the question, how will I survive until the next paycheck, is replaced by how can I grow this money? You stop being someone who constantly reacts to crises and start becoming someone who plans their financial future. Research supports this as well. According to a study conducted by Vanguard, people who have just $2,000 in emergency savings experience about a 21% increase in their financial well-being. Just $2,000, less than what many people spend on a vacation or an expensive electronic device. Yet, even this small financial cushion can move someone out of pure survival mode. And when an emergency fund reaches 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for many people is around $20,000, financial well-being increases by an additional 13%. Perhaps the most important change is this: from this point on, your brain no longer focuses only on protecting money, but also on finding ways to grow it. So why exactly $20,000? Why not $10,000 or $50,000? There are several important reasons behind this, and they emerge at the intersection of psychology, mathematics, and everyday financial realities. First of all, $20,000 is one of the levels where a real sense of financial security begins to form for most people. This amount usually acts as a buffer that can cover several months of living expenses. In other words, even if you lose your job, you don't have to panic immediately. When life suddenly throws an unexpected expense at you, you don't have to rely on credit cards or go into debt. This creates a significant mental relief for a person because a large part of financial stress actually comes from uncertainty. The thought of what if something happens. As you approach this level, that fear begins to decrease, at least a little. The second important point is reaching a level where investing starts to truly feel real. Let's say you invest $20,000 in something that generates an average annual return of around 7%. In such a case, you could earn roughly $1,400 per year. This amount may not completely change your life, but it creates a very important shift. For the first time, your money truly starts working for you. Until that moment, for most people, the only way to make money seems to be working. You give your time, you put in effort, and in return you receive money. But when you invest, you encounter a different reality. Money itself can produce more money, and this realization can completely change a person's financial perspective. Many people believe that the world of investing belongs only to the rich. It often feels as if you need to already have a huge amount of money before you can even begin investing. In reality, however, investing usually starts with small amounts and grows over time. As the system moves forward patiently, it gains speed. The $20,000 level is one of the first points where this process begins to show visible movement. One of the most powerful mechanisms that comes into play at this stage is compound growth. There is a famous quote often attributed to Albert Einstein: "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world." The idea behind this quote is quite simple, yet its impact is enormous. Compound growth means that the returns you earn also begin to generate new returns over time. At the beginning, this process moves quite slowly. In fact, during the first years, many people feel as if almost no progress is happening. The graph looks almost like a straight line, but as time passes, that line slowly begins to curve upward. Then, as the years go by, the growth accelerates, and the graph almost turns into an exponential curve. Unfortunately, many people never reach the point where they can see this effect. Because the process is slow at the beginning, they become impatient, they lose motivation, or the financial pressures of life push them to stop investing. This is exactly why the $20,000 level becomes a critical turning point. Once this level is reached, the system starts producing more visible results. The small contributions you make begin to truly matter, and you can see it with your own eyes. This completely changes a person's motivation. At some point, saving money no longer feels like a sacrifice the way it once did. Instead, it begins to feel like an investment in your future freedom. And in fact, one of the most valuable things money can buy is exactly that: freedom. Because true wealth is rarely about expensive cars, luxury houses, or flashy watches. True wealth is the power to decide how you use your time. It is the courage to walk away from a job you don't want. It is the ability to spend more time with the people you love. It is the luxury of focusing on the things that truly matter in your life. This is where the real value of wealth becomes clear. And interestingly, for most people, this journey begins with a goal much smaller than they imagine. The first $20,000 Of course, $20,000 is not a magical number. It is not a written rule of the financial world. However, psychologically, it can be considered a very powerful threshold because once you reach this level, you stop being someone who only saves money and gradually begin to think like an investor. Your perspective on money changes, the way you evaluate spending changes, and even your approach to your job may begin to shift over time. The reason is simple: you are no longer dependent solely on your salary. Even if it is small, you now have capital that works on your behalf. This moves your way of thinking to an entirely different level. For example, before making a new purchase, a different question may start appearing in your mind. If I had left this money invested instead of spending it, how much could it grow for me in the future? At first glance, this thought may seem small, but over time it creates a huge difference in financial behavior because wealth is rarely built with a single big decision. Most of the time, it is the result of hundreds or even thousands of small financial choices accumulated over time. The car you choose, the type of home you decide to live in, which expenses truly add value to your life, and most importantly, which money you allow to keep growing. All of these are important parts of the process. Many people think wealth begins with high salaries. In reality, however, the foundation of wealth is often built through behavior, discipline, patience, and the ability to think long-term are at the center of this process. That is why the financial journey is rarely a short, fast race for most people. It is much more like a long marathon. The early stages may feel difficult, progress may appear slow, and sometimes you may feel as if nothing is changing at all. But when the right system is in place, time becomes your greatest ally. Years later, when you look back, you often realize that the biggest difference was not catching the perfect investment opportunity, but maintaining consistent behavior. For this reason, financial success is often more about consistency than intelligence. On this channel, we will talk exactly about these topics: how money truly works, why people repeat the same financial mistakes over and over again, and how small but powerful financial systems can turn into massive results over time. My goal is to make complex financial topics simpler, clearer, and more applicable to everyday life, because financial knowledge is often explained in an unnecessarily complicated way. In reality, the core principles are quite straightforward: generate income, keep expenses under control, and grow the money that remains wisely. It may sound simple, but when applied correctly, these principles can truly change lives. If you want more clarity in your financial life, more control over your money, and a stronger sense of long-term security, then you are in the right place.